Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so here we go. We're moving on with the 5 worldviews. And we've been talking about naturalism, humanism, and the anchor for this week is everyone has a worldview. I'm just going to fly through this because we've seen all this. Okay, so you need to remember the anchor. Everyone has a worldview. We've talked about the 5 right questions. As we go on that. And we talked about Christianity yesterday. And then talked about that. So now we're talking about naturalism slash humanism. And I mentioned that it is a theistic worldview. And man, not God, is the center of everything. There is no God, as one atheist put it, where there's no need to conjure up old men in the sky. There's all that exists is the natural, which is the definition of naturalism, that only the natural world exists. There is no supernatural, according to naturalism. And humanism, while all strict humanists are naturalists, they are more concerned about human beings, human beings righting all the wrongs of the world. That we have the power to make everything right. We haven't done it in 6,000 years of recorded history, but that's what they believe. So, but maybe next year, who knows? So, humanism ostensibly believes in the betterment of all humans, but it really tends to degrade to the selfishness because of our selfish nature. We can't get through that. Now, they would say there's no such thing as a sin, obviously, but yeah, that's not what they believe. But they don't believe that there is a God, so there's no sin nature. So man, not God, is the center of all things. So if there's no God, there's no moral absolutes. It's just what is right for you, and what is right and what is wrong. I think I read these 2 quotes in the book, and so I won't read them again. But without God, there are no moral absolutes, and the material world is all there is. So, and I read this quote from Bertrand Russell, who was very popular in the 1970s. Science can teach us, and I think our own hearts teach us. Yeah. So science can teach us, and I think our own hearts can teach us, no longer to look around for imaginary supports, no longer to invent allies in the sky, but rather to look to our own efforts here below to make this world a fit place to live in, instead of the sort of place that the churches in all these centuries have made it. Are we any better? The United States, arguably, has been largely atheistic in the sense that they might believe in God, but they don't believe in a personal God for decades. And in those decades, we've continued to degrade. I've seen it. I hear things and see things that I would have never imagined. And I know you think I'm older than it is, but it's not that long ago. You'll realize that.
You would agree.
So I stopped before I told you this story. This is a true story. It's a little weird, but it is a true story. I think that I think it's funny, but I also think it has a meaning to it. So I was in college, don't know what year, but I remember I was at the library, which was weird because the only reason I went to go to the library was to get books to write papers. We used to do that. We used to check out books and read those books to help us in our papers. And so I was there. I didn't study in the library. Most people studied in the library. I could not do that. I couldn't study in the library because everyone was whispering. And so I'm trying to read, and I'm hearing, and my ears would just go like this. But if I was in what was called the cage, which was the snack bar area kind of thing, and there was just this general din, I was fine because I couldn't make out any of the noise, or in my room where it was quiet. So I don't know why I was at the library, but I was. And I went into the restroom, and I went into the stall, and this might shock you young men, but sometimes girls walk on, right on the stalls as well. And there was someone who had etched into that stall these words: "God is dead, Nietzsche," which is a quote from Friedrich Nietzsche. But then below it, someone else etched something. Nietzsche is dead. God.
That's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah, I thought it was hilarious. If I would have had a cell phone, I would have taken a picture of it. There were no cell phones.
That's kind of funny.
That's all weird.
Yeah. So in humanism, in naturalism, yes.
Okay, a question about naturalism and humanism. If there's nothing, like if my right is right to me and your right is right to you, then how do they have peace in their society? Because there's nothing stopping me from doing what I think is right, even though it's actually morally wrong, like stealing something from you. Like how does that work then? Do they believe that that's just fine?
It doesn't work.
But in their
look,
minds,
Or if you discovered it.
Look, the most,
I'm so
and you know
confused.
this, right? A lot of you took AP World, or maybe you didn't have AP World.
That's a question.
But yeah,
That was not
But-
good.
but the most destructive, evil societies we have had are the godless societies. The ones that don't give you freedom are the ones that are atheistic. The ones that give you freedom because Christ has set us free. And so I don't know what's going on there, but I'm pretty sure it has nothing to do with this class, and so it needs to stop. Because you need to be listening to me. Thank you. Yeah, it's the most evil societies are godless. And think of Pol Pot. I don't know if you've heard of Pol Pot, but and think of the USSR, which is no longer, but it is still not an open country. It's not openly democratic. It's better than it was when I was your age, but it's still not that. And look at the Middle Eastern countries. They have a religion, but they have a religion that tends to violence. And it is only in the Western world that either has a faith background or still has a faith background we're kind of post-Christian, I think, even in the United States, and Europe has been post-Christian for a long time. But there's still vestiges of those beliefs. Yes.
I think I heard it said that Gen Z is the first post-Christian generation.
That is true.
Millennials were like on the line, but we're the first of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are consequences for that, right? And we see that. We were scandalized, when, I don't know, the first cuss word was in a song on the radio. When I was young, they bleeped anything that was not appropriate. So that doesn't happen. So people are believed to be inherently good, and utopia is possible. And this is what Karl Marx said about this. The imaginary flowers of religion adorn man's chains. Yet man must throw off the flowers and also and so then the next thing is that our value system is based on one's needs. And we have this whole idea of, if it's true for me, that's true for me, but that's not true for you. That's true for you, but not true for me. And it is all based on what we want. I would say it says needs here. I believe it's more of what we want. And then, have you heard this term self-actualization?
In psychology, you were talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah. So that was a big watch term in the 60s and 70s when, things. I mean, you talked about your generation. I'm a baby boomer. I slipped in there 3 years before the baby boomers stopped. And the baby boomers were the ones that were the Vietnam era.
It was like right after World War.
No, it started in the 60s.
Vietnam 60s.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's
Baby
into
boomers
the
started.
70s. I think it ended in 74.
Baby boomer I thought that was the baby boom after World War II.
Yeah.
It is, but it goes from 1946 to 64.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's a big group.
What's the generation after that?
Millennials.
No.
Oh, it's X, and then
It's
millennials.
X.
So if you're born in 69, what are you? Are you X or are you baby boomer?
No, you're not a baby boomer. You were born 64. That's the latest.
Right, but there's always those years that are like could go one way or the other.
Yeah, I think it would probably be more that. I think that's.
The
I'm
generations
not
are
sure.
getting tired.
But anyway, that what's called the greatest generation, the World War II generation, they had fundamentally different values than even my generation, the next generation from that, my parents' generation. And they're the ones that won World War II, that made the world safe. They understood sacrifice. They understood family. My dad's family was basically a mess, and still is basically a mess. And how he turned out to be who he was out of that family is unbelievable to me. You can only say that it's Jesus that did that. And I could tell you stories about. Well, I will tell you a story. But I'm gonna finish that. In my I don't have any cousins on my mother's side. My mother was a my cousins are all on my dad's side, and we have like most of I was thinking about this. My sisters and I, and one other cousin, are the only ones that are still married to our first spouses. And I've got now some of them didn't marry. I think that in that case, it was three brothers in one family, and their parents' marriage was so unattractive. I even knew as a child that they didn't marry. Well, one of them married, but whatever. But almost all my cousins are divorced, and none of them are believers. Well, the one that stayed there is a believer. Nobody else. But their generation, my aunt, uncle's generation, they largely honored marriage. Now, I'm telling you, they weren't good marriages, but they stayed married. Um, and um, uh, and so that generation fundamentally believed in family, believed in working hard, believed in our way of life and governance. And that has changed oh, dramatically in the last couple of, not decades, but generations. So, yeah, uh, yeah, this idea of self actualization is that um, we need to do what is best for us. We need to meet our full potential, no matter who that hurts. And it doesn't work out very well. So humanists are bound by the accepted answers to real questions of life. They are free to discover, they're not bound by that. They're free to discover their own answers, whether or not they are true. It can be true, they believe it's true for me. That's not true for me, but it may be true for you. There is no such thing. If it's true for all people at all times and everywhere. And you know that from last year. And so knowledge is based on reason, not on faith. Is reason wrong?
No.
No.
No. But it needs to be vetted, right? It needs to be checked out. That's what vetted means. So knowledge is the base. It is based on reason, but does that exclude faith?
No.
No.
No. If we have good reason for faith, we should have faith, right? But the atheist rules out any sort of supernatural at the beginning. So you can never get that answer because it's ruled out. And then, so science is the means of salvation to the naturalist, to the humanist. And I don't know what salvation means to them because they don't believe in any sort of afterlife. But that is what where they put their confidence. Here's a quote from Voltaire, who was a philosopher a long time ago. Like, I don't mean the 1960s. So he said this: the truths of religion are never so well understood as by those who have lost their power of reason. The truths of religion are never so well understood by those who have lost their power of reason. So yeah, we lose our understanding of truth if we lose our power. So then we've also got this thing called utilitarianism. Utilitarianism. Yep, there's no moral outcome. The material world is studied. Is believed to be inherently good, therefore utopia is possible. One's value system is based on one's needs. Actualizing human potential is the key to progress. Humanists are not bounded by the accepted answers to the real questions of life. They are free to discover their own answers, whether they're true or not. Knowledge is based on reason and proof, not faith in Christ. Knowledge is based. And then it emphasizes bringing out the best in people, scientific inquiry, individual freedom, human reason, tolerance, and self-determination. None of that is bad unless you take God out of that. Then it just becomes false. So this is, I don't see that one. Oh yeah, okay, this is the last one. So normative standards for moral behavior are discovered and tested by their consequences. What does that mean?
Like if you do something bad and it's like socially not acceptable and you become a social outcast, you're not gonna do it. And with the more people start doing those things, the more it becomes normalized, and so the consequences aren't even so if you but if you have consequences, then people will not normalize it.
And who chooses?
The society.
The society does. And there's not, normative standards aren't standards really at all. It's just what people tend to believe, whether it has good reason behind it or not.
May I run to the office? Because this is my thingy sheet that I never sent in. I never sent in.
Your thingy sheet?
Mission trip. What do you do? I'm not.
When are we at?
I don't know when we're out. All I know is that I've had it in my
I'll let you go
bag.
just a little bit early so you're not late. Okay?
I've had it in my book bag for like I never did it.
So the way I look at normative standards is if it's good for me, then it's good. But that isn't always true, especially if we're not taking into consideration those who it might impact negatively. But they believe it's good for them, so that's good enough. Okay, so a little bit of background, a little bit of history, and we'll knock off for today. So the idea began in Europe during the Renaissance, so a long, long time ago, with an emphasis on classical education. And the belief in reason as the cure of all problems began to take root in the 17th and 18th centuries. That all we needed to do is have right reasoning and everything would be good. So reason is only as good as the reasoning. If the reasoning is wrong, it's not going to be helpful. And then Charles Darwin's theory of evolution came in at this time, and believed in the origin of humans coming through natural selection, not through God, and that changed things dramatically, especially in the Western world. And then humanism, began to take root in the United States in the early 1930s, and that was the first time that we had a humanist manifesto in 1933. There have been many more since there. One in the 60s and 70s. In 73, there was another manifesto. I'm not sure how old the last one was, but it was just laying out why humanism, that humans are the answer to everything.
Oh my gosh.
What?
No, because it's American. No. Like just Americans are fat.
Oh, yeah. Oh. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I've got some candy back there.
Oh.
Munching on that. I don't. Well, I do have candy. Yeah, there have been a number of humanist manifestos, and people people became interested in the sciences and decided that science and religion did not support each other. Before that time, science and religion were seen as working together, but eventually science took over and jettisoned any sort of faith claim. So that's the background to humanism. We will finish this tomorrow. I've got a fun clip to play for you, and then we'll move on to postmodernism.
Sounds good.
And you may leave.
Okay, so tomorrow I will be in class. I'll have an appointment. Yeah. Tomorrow. Tomorrow I won't be. Sorry.
How are you and your sister doing separately between?
I don't know. Interesting. I don't know what she thinks. But anyways, tomorrow.
You don't know?
No.
I'm asking.
You should ask her. Because I heard she's a 7th hour study hall. If you really wanted it, you could have a little bit at the same time. What? Oh, I know. That's why I said I don't know what she thinks, because I think she doesn't. She looks sometimes. Yeah. Got it. See if you can't stop it.
We're all good with it. I like flashing to a class. They're fun.
We did. It was great.
I mean, it's quiet out the end stuff, so. I'm not yelling over people while they're
No touchy.
Oh yeah, Emily, people were coming up to me like, "Whose locker is next to your drama on it?"
Movie.
Not put it on there.
Take it up,
First off, I haven't thought about it yet.
No, you shouldn't.
Oh, like,
Take it out and put it on mine.
I think it really matters.
Don't cheat. Thank you, Mrs. Geezer.
Yeah.
Yep. Ugh. I go fill up my water. Hey. Good. Good. Did I fill up my water bottle?
Can I show you my Spanish?
Yes, I'd love to see. You can't really tell right now, but I'm going to put it. This is Raphael the Blobfish. That's Raphael. Raphael the Blobfish. See, this is. He gets his heart broken because his girlfriend breaks up with him. She wants a better guy. So he's sitting in front of his TV, eating ice cream, crying. When a ripped frog is like, "Are you sad?" He's like, "Yes." "Are you sitting in front of your TV eating ice cream?" He's like, "Yes." "How the heck does this frog know what I'm doing?" Mom's like, subscribe to my news program. Back on track. So he subscribes. He follows the frog's instructions. Day and night he trains. He lifts weights. He goes on runs and he stretches. After 8 months, he begins to see progress. You know, he has abs. He lost his bowels. Then his girlfriend.
I've never seen this picture before.
I love those stories.
Okay, you won't come out of this. Really,
He's filling up his water bottle. It'll grow. Bro, it'll grow back. It's okay.
I will.
Aaron, did you finish the dialogue?
Not yet. Oh, yeah. The Roman over this is
Oh,
either because they have.
Turn this to the back.
Alright.
You have to. Oh, wait. And then.
Because I'm proud of it. Like, look at that frog.
Or like. I just don't. I just. That was.
Definitely. We'll see you all.
That was good. Very good.
Congratulations, Mrs. Smith. You got a new baby boy. Any thought of a name? I was thinking of something for fun, like Joel, Daniel, Joshua. It's so hard to decide. Other day, or some change. I something strange. Then he had it. There is no rival. Sin decisive, so she half the Bible, just Exodus. Joshua Judges, Ruth, First Samuel, First Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther, Psalm, Ecclesiastes, Psalm, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel, Daniel, Hosea, Joel, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Alexa, Micah, Zechariah, Malachi. I said, your name is rather long. Sure it's white. Using how that most folks get it wrong. The way to memorize by words of song. Write it with your name and ask if you would sing along. Just Exodus of it, I'm been around. Which is with First and Samuel, First and Kings, First. Chronicles says Nehemiah, Esther, Psalm, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Solomon, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, Hosea, Obadiah. Now by God, they come back to the land of God, sacrifice, I don't know why she didn't know. Most mothers love their sons. Friends all try to change their minds. Stuck to their guns. So I'm resigned to let them cry and not let this thing fester. Any mom would give her son a name like Ruth or Esther. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Joshua, Judges, Ruth, Samuel, First, and Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Solomon, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Daniel, Alexa, Zechariah, Malachi. Genesis, Exodus, getting it down, pursuit, Chronicles, Joshua, Judges, Ruth, First and Second Samuel, First and Second Kings, First and Second Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther, Job, Psalm, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Solomon, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, Saint, Holiness, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi, Smith.
Okay, we're gonna go through more of the humanism. Naturalism portion of this lesson, and we'll finish it tomorrow, and then move on to postmodernism tomorrow. This is by far the longest lesson because we're going through all these different worldviews. So I'll start at the beginning and go through it quickly, review it quickly, and then we'll take. So remember, they've put naturalism and humanism together. They're not the exact same thing, but in terms of worldview, they are very commensurate to one another. They are both atheistic in nature. They both believe in human beings being the savior for